Starting in the back of the rooms. Come on. All right, in the front. Do all three. All three. All four. Do it.
Richard, regarding your question to the Scratch team, whether there could be some evaluation about whether computational thinking really had an impact, I heard that the database is now available and you have all the information, what programs, at what age, which gender, and also country information is available for research, of course without personal data, but yeah.
Is it? Well, that's wonderful.
Yes.
Perhaps you'll tell me after.
I think we want to say we haven't started this project yet, and we intend to look at all of this. But I do think it is the resources, it is the evaluation data, but it also is the learning journeys. I think that's a very important, the school context is something that we have to put in the mix. And I think that's very hard to make up from afar. But I think I'm just saying we start on September the 1st.
Well, thank you for 3 wonderful presentations. And I just wanted to make a comment on the importance of allowing children to think in more systemic ways. I believe that many children become interested in certain kind of games because those games allow them to do that. And this is actually a reflection by James G., whom I respect because he was interested in all these questions before it became a fad to talk about the importance of games and so on. So I just suggest to think about this. In some of the games that the kids really love, what they can do is what usually we don't let them do in schools. It's the first thing is to, they can handle the whole complexity of a situation and they don't have it delivered to them in sort of what we, the grown-ups, think are manageable parts for them. And the second thing is that there is this big lack, as you were mentioning, in using so-called STEM, especially in the US, to actually understand some of these important ideas about cybernetics, sort of self-regulating systems and, you know, dynamic systems. And what I enjoyed always about the work of Andy De Sessa is that at the time he was really interested in children's own insights on the sort of equilibration of systems, the functioning of systems, when a system gets out of balance or into balance and so on. And I believe that this was one of the basic reasons why Seymour Papert at the beginning of the learning and epistemology era, you know, at the Media Lab, he actually wanted to study the theme of children and cybernetics. And in part we have succeeded, but I just want to tell the tale of how Seymour formulated this. He says we are in a historical moment where we can take what has been learned from systems theory and cybernetics theory, and we are going to do what Piaget did in Geneva, trying to actually replicate it at MIT. We are going to study the Macy conferences, where you have big debates on this question of agency, purpose, systems, and so on. And we have a laboratory of the kind that we never had before. We have a laboratory of the type of, you know, having the possibility to marry Lego and Logo, because those were the ones available at the time, and to study the behaviors of creatures. This was especially with the beginnings of Star Logo, and to actually see how children themselves think about some of these questions. So I just wanted to bring it back into the context. And the second point that I find actually common in the three presentations, I think it suggests also to allow children to work across platforms, because what we ultimately want is also to study children as cyberneticians, is children's own views about what kinds of systems have different affordances and allow them to explore certain things that they are interested in doing or not. So it's almost bringing it back to focusing again on one of the things that I think Seymour Papert was interested in, certainly Piaget, is to become interested in their own views about what epistemology is about. They are epistemologists. They have their own views about it. And I was very pleased that I found some of this in these three presentations. They are the seeds for important discussion.
Any of you four want to respond to that? All right, let's have one last question. Ken?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. I just wanted to mention something that both I learned from Playground, but also relates very well to Pavel's deconstructionism, which is that, and maybe I'll tell a quick story, which was 2 7-year-old boys in Sweden in the Playground project. They took 2 games, like ping pong and the Space Invader games, and they pulled them apart, but they put it together as Space Pong, where they had a pong game, but they also had invaders, and the paddle could be both used to hit the ball and just defend against the invaders and so on. And what I learned from it, from a tool designer point of view, is how important this sort of middle-up programming, where you're not programming from scratch in the small s, but that you could do a lot by combining, you know, building blocks of behaviors and rules to make larger things, and that it's important that you can go from the middle down, but that could be later, and that you can start building by putting together higher level pieces.
Isn't it the case, Ken, that I think that's absolutely right. The whole point about your behaviours was that it was to try and have that middle layer.
Right.
But we were disappointed that so few people did go down.
Right.
That's
right.
what I think that was a fair summary of the results. You really wanted them to,
yes,
but didn't.
Yes. And for the older ones in the next project, they did, the 10 to 13-year-olds did, yeah. But the 6 to 8 didn't very much. Yeah.
All right, from the back of the room, one quick question.
Oh, it's a long way. Got a mountaineer up there.
Thanks for the wonderful intervention. That's a question that relates also a bit to the yesterday's discussion about what are powerful ideas. But you pushed me to ask it also thanks to the slide that you didn't left him to show, because it's moving in my head since the whole conference. We are talking about the usage of computing as a promoter of better way of thinking, a better school and educational culture. But I think somehow we forget to at least enough underline, in my humble viewpoint and in my terrible English, that also not just programming has changed and computing has changed, but the artifact, the physical stuff has changed a lot. So I think we should consider the powerful idea a metaphor, and a powerful idea can be, as we've seen, the discovery of the zero from a kid who didn't think about it until he discovered him or herself, and it's a huge discovery. It's a great idea to a kid to grasp and to jump on. But if we propose those wonderful opportunities to reflection and action using a screen, using a tablet, I'm scared, and I've discussed it a little bit with some of the colleagues, that the gestalt of the screen, the context of the screen, for a kid will be always perceivable as a place where I look to. So I'm also a bit scared that we somehow must reflect upon the usage models proposed nowadays by computing, because I'm not so sure that Seymour will be happy that anyone has a screen who can act as a computer, but if that I show you at 3 years or 4 years or 5 years old, as I do since a couple of decades, you will perceive it forever differently. I mean, a computer with a keyboard, it's a computer. A computer without a keyboard is a screen. And if you've been exposed too early to a screen, I'm also a bit scared that your approach to consuming versus producing stuff can be strongly biased. And I'm already witnessing, because kids who start with smartphones get much more difficulties on managing also the paint interface after, because they find it too messy compared to what they find into their bloody dad's iPhones. And computing has changed, and computer itself has changed a lot after 30 years. And I think we should a bit reflect upon, because we consider ourselves normal people with a passion, but the average parent and the average teacher just run into the last novelty as a given thing to have. And I think that in school we still can use computers from 10 years ago perfectly with kids, and maybe better than the latest version of the bloody iPad.
Oh, there's so much to talk about. There's so much to talk about. But let's salute our friends and colleagues. Yeah.